Okay, this is the second recording. This is the second recording on a system of equations, word problems, creating the equations. So the last one I gave a lot of explanation, and I think that actually became more confusing. So I'm just going to show you how to do the problems in this particular video. So, oh boy, it's always hard to get to this, and I'm in tablet mode, so this may take a second. Oh, you're killing me. How do I get to something? Oh wait, how do I do that? Nope, nope, nope. Oh, there we go. So, first word problem. John and Raven go to the store. They buy honey buns and airheads. John buys 2 honey buns and and 5 airheads for $7.25. Raven buys 1 honey bun and 8 airheads for $7.50. How much is 1 honey bun? How much is 1 airhead? All right. So whenever you see this, these questions tell you what the variable is going to be. So how much is 1 honey bun? How much is 1 airhead? How much meaning how much does it cost? So I can go ahead and say, I'm just going to use X and Y in this one instead of using other variables. So I'll say X is the cost of 1 honey bun. Y is the cost of 1 airhead. 1 airhead. Boy, it's hard to write on these screens. So next. Now I need to say, all right, well, I know there's going to be a total value somewhere, and that's going to normally be the value that's all by itself. So my total value is what? So for John, he spends $7.25, and that's going to be made up of the cost of the honey buns plus the airheads. So the way I figure that out is I say, well, how many honey buns did he buy? Well, that's 2. How much is 1 honey bun? Well, I don't know that number, but I know I made that X right here, the very top variable, cost of 1 honey bun. And then I need to add that to the cost of the airheads. Well, how many airheads did he buy? Well, he bought 5 airheads. And then that's going to be times the cost of 1 airhead, which I made Y. Again, the cost of a honey bun and an airhead is going to be the same for both of them. So we can use the same variables in both equations. Now, Raven, she paid $7.10, and she bought 1, and you can use a 1 there, or you could just put X, either way. But then she bought 8 airheads. So those are your 2 equations, pretty straightforward. I'm not going to make you solve it when I do this for creating equations. You should be able to do it, but I understand it's hard to do it when I'm not there, so probably hard even with me there. But anyway, so that's how you set up that type of equation. The key is, the reason that I can kind of tell it's not in this format where y equals mx plus b, there's not really a value that's like that initial cost. That would be your b value. There's no number in there where it says like an initial cost or a one-time cost. So if that's the case, then there can't really be a y equals mx plus b. So that's how I know it's not that format. And if you'll notice, this is called standard form. A times x plus b times y equals c. So if you happen to see that somewhere, I'm not going to do a lesson on it, but if you happen to look something up, that would work as well. Next, and this one was the one that was, I think, more confusing in the other video. So I'm going to slide this up a little bit. All right, so in this equation, or in this word problem, now here I do see that we have kind of a situation where there's a one-time fee. So they both have phone plans, and he pays $20 plus 15, that's 15 cents per text. $0.15 is 15 cents. And then Maria pays $5 plus 25 cents per text. So I've got an initial cost. I've got that word per in both of these two pieces, So that is my hint that it's going to probably be in this format. Mainly the initial cost value, or that one-time fee, the $20 or the $5, depending on who you're talking about. So now I can set up the two equations. Well, again, I know it's going to be in the format of y equals mx plus b. The m comes from the phrase that has the per in it. So remember, that was one of our key words. Whatever comes before the word per is our m, so 0.15. The x, so y is going to stand for, I'm going to write it above, y is the total cost of each plan, total cost of the plan. Whether it's Maria's or Edwin's, it doesn't matter. It's going to be the total cost of plan, we'll just say. And then x is going to be the number. Remember, if you remember our little poster, x is always the number of, and then you just put the word in that follows. I'm going to use a different color. So we use the word that follows the word per, which in this case is text. So number of texts. All right. So x stands for the number of texts. So I put x in there. So the cost per text times the number of texts is how much money he spends on texts, or she spends on text. And then we have to add to that the cost of his one-time cost, which is $20. So second one's always pretty easy once you figure out how to do the first one. Her cost is 0.25, 25 cents, and then times the number of texts, and then plus 5. Because that's her one-time fee, is the $5. So this is really your two equations. To break it down a little bit more, this amount right here, the first column, or whatever you want to call it, so these amounts, that's the money they spend on texts. And then this column right here, these numbers, that's just their one-time fee. That's the money they spend, money spent on, we'll just say, setup or whatever, or monthly fee or what. So a lot of times that would be the monthly fee in a phone plan. I'm not good at making E's on this. So now we can solve this out. Again, if I know that y is equal to, so y is equal to this amount, that whole thing is the same thing as y, then I could take y in the second equation and just replace it. And I use the analogy of $1.04. So if I know $1 is the same thing as 4 quarters, well, then I could take this $1 down here and replace it with this 4 quarters right here. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to say my new overall equation is 0.15x plus 20. So this is substitution, by the way. I'm solving a system of equation by substitution. I could actually graph this one too, since they're both in a pretty easy format to graph. And then I just put the other equation on the other side. Nothing changes with that equation. Now I can solve that out. So again, I move all of the variables to the left-hand side. That's not right. So I'm going to draw a line down the middle. I'm going to move variables to the left. So I would say subtract 0.25x, which means I have to subtract 0.25 0.25 x over here. So that gives me negative 0.10x plus 20 equals, that all canceled out. So all I have is 5. So if I'm moving the variables to the left, which is the way that I'm just telling you to do it, move the variables to the left, then I need to move the numbers, so anything that doesn't have a variable, to the right. So that means I need to subtract it on the left and then subtract it on the right also. So I get negative 15 equals 0.10x, which means negative 0.10x, which means I need to divide by negative 0.10, which means I need to divide over here by a negative 0.10. A negative divided by a negative gives me a positive, so I get x, so that cancels out and that cancels out. X is left, and I get, it looks like 150 texts. Wow, that seems high. So what I'm solving out is, it says at 150 texts, so 150 text messages, that's where they would both pay the same amount on their individual plans. So let's test that out just to make sure. That seems high, but maybe not. So I want to go back up to the original equations and see what they pay. So y equals 0.15x plus 20, and y equals 0.25x plus 5. So y equals 0.15x plus 20 is Edwin, and then y equals 0.25x plus 5. And I think at 150 is where they're going to be the same amount. So let's plug that in. So we would plug in 150 for x, so 0.15 times 150 plus 20, and then over here on the right, and that's going to be my total, which is y, total cost. So again, y is going to equal 0.25 times 150 plus 5. So grab a calculator for this. So 0.15 times 150 equals, and I'm just going to do all the math at one time, plus 20. All right, so this gives me y equals 42.5. So this number right here is how much money Edwin spends. So y equals 42.5. This is how much money Edwin spends if he texts 150 times. Total, so I should put total cost for 150 texts. So that's the cost of the text plus that additional $20 that he also has to spend. So let's see what Selena spends over here. So let me do the math on that one. 0.25 times 150 plus 5. Yes, and it does come out to be the same exact number. So again, for her, that is the same thing. So that is her total cost for 150 texts also. So it's the amount she spends on the text plus this $5 that she has to pay as kind of a one-time fee. So I know I'm correct. All right, so that's all for this video.